Hi, everybody. I just want to say hello from me and Stella. We are going to do a very quick little review on the life and times of Frida Kahlo today. And first, we're going to watch a little video explaining a little background information, because I'm sure since it's been over a month, you guys might have forgotten some information. And then we are going to take a virtual tour of Frida Kahlo's house. So I'm excited. I hope you are too. Say hello, Stella. Hello.
In 1925, Frida Kahlo was on her way home from school in Mexico City when the bus she was riding collided with a streetcar. She suffered near-fatal injuries to her spine, pelvis, and hips and was bedridden for months afterward. During her recovery, she had a special easel attached to her bed so she could practice painting techniques. When she set to work, she began to paint the world according to her own singular vision. Over the course of her life, she would establish herself as the creator and muse behind extraordinary art. Though you may have met Kahlo's gaze before, her work provides an opportunity to see the world through her eyes. She painted friends and family, still lives and spiritual scenes, but it was her mesmerizing self-portraits which first caught the world's attention. In an early work, Self-Portrait with Velvet Dress, the focus is on her strong brows, facial hair, long neck, and formidable stare. Such features remained, but Kahlo soon began to present herself in more unusual ways. For example, the broken column uses symbolism, religious imagery, and a ruptured landscape to reveal her physical and mental state. In 1928, Kahlo started dating fellow painter Diego Rivera. They became lifelong partners and cultivated an eccentric celebrity. Together, they traveled the world and dedicated themselves to art, communist politics, and Mexican nationalism. Kahlo and Rivera shared a deep affinity with Mexicanidad, a movement which celebrated indigenous culture after the revolution. In her daily life, Kahlo wore a traditional Tejuano dress and immersed herself in native spirituality. And in her work, she constantly referenced Mexican folk painting, incorporating its bright colors and references to death, religion, and nature. With her imagery of giant floating flowers, undulating landscapes, transplanted body parts, and billowing clouds of demons, Kahlo has often been associated with surrealism. But while surrealists use dreamlike images to explore the unconscious mind, Kahlo used them to represent her physical body and life experiences. Two of her most explored experiences were her physical disabilities and her marriage. As a result of the bus accident, she experienced lifelong health complications and endured many hospitalizations. She often contemplated the physical and psychological effects of disability in her work, painting herself in agony, recuperating from operations, or including objects such as her back brace and wheelchair. Meanwhile, her relationship with Rivera was tempestuous, marked by infidelity on both sides. At one point, they even divorced, then remarried a year later. During this period, she painted the double self-portrait, The Two Fridas, which speaks to the anguish of loss and a splintered sense of self. The Frida to the left has a broken heart, which drips blood onto her old-fashioned Victorian dress. She symbolizes a version of the artist who is wounded by the past, but is also connected by an artery to a second self. This Frida is dressed in Tejuana attire, and although she remembers Diego with the tiny portrait in her hand, her heart remains intact. Together, the two suggest a position caught between past and present, individuality and dependency. Kahlo died in 1954 at the age of 47. In the years after her death, she experienced a surge in popularity that has lasted to this day. And although her image has proliferated, Kahlo's body of work reminds us that there are no simple truths about the life, work, and legacy of the woman behind the icon. Rather, she put multiple versions of her reality on display and provided us with a few entryways into the contents of her soul.
Hello again, and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video. I thought it was really a good overview of Frida Kahlo's life. We are now in the virtual tour of Frida Kahlo's house. If you would like to check out this virtual tour yourself, I will send you guys the link. It's museofridakahlo.org.mx. Right now, we are in the courtyard area of Frida Kahlo's house. Her house is in Coyoacan in Mexico City. and I actually had the opportunity to go there last summer. I'll have some pictures of me. There is a picture of me in front of her studio right there, which we will be looking at in a moment. And there is a picture of me, as you can see, in the courtyard that we were just looking at. So it's a really great opportunity. I hope you all have the chance to travel and experience some of these things, but if you can't, here we are with the virtual tour, which is pretty good actually. I'm pretty pleased with the website. So we are in the courtyard of La Casa Azul, or the Blue House. Obviously it's called the Blue House because of its signature bright blue color. From the street, it just looks like any old house. It just has, you know, tall stucco walls that are also painted blue. When I went to visit last summer, there was a huge line outside. I waited for about 2.5 hours to get in, and it was totally worth it. But it just kind of goes to show how significant Frida Kahlo is in terms of her cultural influence in Mexico. There were people in line that I was speaking to that came from all sorts of places all over Mexico, lots of other countries, all just to come see this. So it's pretty cool. We're going to take a look at it today. As you can see in the courtyard area, there are lots of exotic plants. Not only did Frida Kahlo and her husband, Diego Rivera, have lots of interesting Mexican plants around, they also, when they lived there, had a lot of exotic pets. They had pet monkeys, pet birds, all sorts of things, which you can see in the backgrounds of some of Frida Kahlo's paintings. Also, by the way, if you hear the birds cheeping in the background, those are my parakeets. They are very chatty today, and I hope you can still hear my voice over them. Anyway, so as we go through, you're going to notice a lot of artwork that lots of statues that look kind of pre-Hispanic or indigenous. Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera collected a lot of pre-Columbian art, so that's art from the civilizations like the Aztecs and the Mayas that existed before the Spaniards showed up. Also, as you can see right here, this is an altar that's built in the shape of a Mayan or Aztec step pyramid. So you can see that they really had a great affinity for Mexican heritage specifically, especially indigenous cultures. So, as we go through our tour, this is our map. We've started in the courtyard here, and we'll be traveling through her house. First, let's just take another view of the courtyard from up here. As you can see, parts of the house are going to be exactly the way they were left. So the kitchen and the bedrooms are basically the way that they would have been when Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera lived there. Same thing with the courtyard. Other rooms in the house have been converted into art galleries to showcase artwork by Frida Kahlo as well as some other famous Mexican artists. So, this is the house that Frida Kahlo grew up in, and then once she grew up and got married, she continued living there. Diego Rivera moved in. So this is one of the rooms that is converted into an art gallery. However, parts of the original design are still visible. As you can see, the original fireplace is still there. If you'll notice, it has those really interesting geometric shapes and sculptures on the bottom that are reminiscent of pre-Columbian artwork, because that was very important to Frida and her husband. As we move on toward the right, you're going to see portraits that Frida painted of both herself and of her family members over time. Again, this was her family's house, and then she inherited it when her parents died. But you can see at a very young age, Frida really had a knack for painting portraits, especially portraits of her family members. We're going to move on into the next room. This painting here on the wall of the watermelon, that's actually a very common theme in a lot of Frida Kahlo's paintings. She painted a lot of fruit, especially watermelon, because she really loved the color as well as the taste of it. A lot of the other pictures in this room are sketches that she drew in preparation of doing paintings. So we can see a preliminary sketch for a self-portrait over here on the wall. Toward the right, as we pan over, you can see a portrait that Frida Kahlo did of her whole family. It's a family tree. So you can see Frida is in the middle here. Her parents are above her, and then her grandparents are above them. So family was very important to Frida Kahlo. As we move on, we're going to see some more rooms that have been turned into galleries. Here is a puppet show that Frida built and would use to put on plays while she was bedridden after her accident. There's also some pages from her sketchbooks, as well as some other sketches in this room by Frida Kahlo. On this wall, we can see pictures, actual photographs of Frida Kahlo and her family members. These are photographs that she would have, they would have been very near and dear to her. You know, we think about our family photographs, whether we have hard copies or digital copies. You know, that's something that a lot of people find very important to them. She's no different. Here you can see some portraits of Frida herself. Moving onward, this room has some paintings and artwork by other artists that were inspired by Frida Kahlo. So as you can see here, these are some paintings that were not painted by Frida herself, but by other artists that were important to her. I really like this painting here, if we can keep it in the screen. So if you look really closely, you can see the faces of different people. Like there's a nose and a mouth and eyes. There's a nose and mouth. So all of the rock faces here have, there's like wings here, are kind of meant to look like indigenous people. And it's supposed to represent how Mexico's roots are really tied up with the pre-Columbian civilizations that existed there. You know, Mexican history didn't just start when the Spanish came any more than American history started when, you know, the English came. There's really a lot more history there. And Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera really celebrated that, and that was an inspiration to many other artists. So as we go around, this gallery has a couple more paintings that were inspired by Frida Kahlo or by her influences. We're going to move on to the next room. Now in this room we can see Frida and Diego's personal collection of these little prayer cards. These are little paintings done mostly on wood or metal, sometimes paper, depicting miracles or miraculous events. People in Mexican folk culture would make these paintings to give thanks to God for something or to ask God for things. As you can see, there's images of the Virgin Mary that appear in a lot of these and other saints. Mexico is a very Catholic country, so that religion does have a very strong influence in Mexican folk art. Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera really wanted to preserve and collect Mexican folk art, so this is part of their collection that they would have had on display when they lived there. Now we're going to move on to the kitchen. This is decorated basically the way that it would have been decorated when Frida and Diego lived in this house. As you can see, it's very, very colorful. There are lots of sculptures and glassware and ceramics from various parts of Mexico. Frida and Diego traveled a lot in Mexico as well as internationally. You can see up on the wall there's a few of these papier-mâché dummies. Those are part of again, a Mexican folk tradition that incorporated stories from the Bible about Judas Iscariot and other people in the Bible with their religion, and those dummies then are supposed to, they play a big role in those celebrations, and again, just like every other room in the house, Frida and Diego are trying to kind of preserve and celebrate Mexican heritage, specifically not just heritage from Spain, but from all aspects of Mexican history. You can see a very extensive pottery and dishes collection here. We're going to move on now into Diego Rivera's bedroom. As you can see here, there's a picture of Diego over his bed, and hanging on the wall is his overalls and hat that he used to wear when he was painting. Diego Rivera was also a very famous painter. He did murals. He actually painted murals in the National Palace of Mexico, as well as some other significant historic landmarks. You can see that he has some paintings on the wall by other artists, as well as some sculptures. Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera had a very long, turbulent relationship. They were married for several years, then they got divorced, then they married again. He cheated on her, she cheated on him. There was a lot going on there. But they did end up, after they were married the second time, they stayed together until her death. This is just a view into the stairwell of their house. Again, there's lots of paintings here by other famous Mexican artists, as well as paintings of people from Frida's family. This is the cooking part of the kitchen. The other was more of like the dining area. Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera made a lot of efforts to try to preserve and research traditional indigenous ways of cooking. So you will see a lot of traditional cookware, a lot of terracotta. They used wood stoves to get that specific kind of, taste in their cooking. And again, you can see the very colorful elements of Mexican folk art here in the kitchen. I can't even imagine how good this place must have smelled when they were making amazing food. On the walls, you'll see lots and lots of little terracotta pots. Also, these little shapes made on the wall that look like they're made of dots. Those are made of teeny tiny miniature pots, which is pretty cool. They would collect different glassware, stoneware, ceramic ware from various parts of Mexico and then incorporate them all into their cooking. Now we are going to go into Frida's studio, which is just the coolest thing, I think. Here they have preserved basically all of her painting supplies, mostly where she left them. You can see a photograph of Diego right here. She had tons of natural light, huge windows, and just all the art supplies a person could want in the world. You can see through the window that it overlooks that big blue courtyard that we saw earlier. Now, for those of you that do like to draw, or if you've ever had to just draw something for a school project, the place that you go to look when you need like reference material is Google, right? If you want to draw a person, you Google what do they look like, or if you want to draw a certain animal, what does a tiger look like? What does a lemur look like? How would I draw a lion? Before Google Images, if you wanted to look up a picture of something, you had to have these books. They're basically albums that are collections of photographs of various things, because there was no Google. So artists, prior to the advent of the internet, used to have to just save up magazine clippings and book photos or buy just portfolios of images so that they had something to use as a reference. So just think about that the next time you have to, draw something for school and you've, traced a clip art or traced a map off the internet. It used to be a lot more difficult to get a hold of those things. Over here you can see Frida's wheelchair. Due to the accident she suffered when she was a teenager, she was not able to walk for most of her life, or she had difficulty walking. This is a modified easel that she would use while she was in her wheelchair to be able to paint. It goes up and down and kind of puts it at the right angle for somebody that's seated rather than somebody that's standing. During Frida's lifetime, people were not as sensitive to people with disabilities as they are now, and so she really had to work hard to find ways to accommodate her disabilities because there weren't as many options. So now we are leaving the studio. As you can see, this is her studio over here, and we are going into Frida's kind of day room. This is where she would take naps in the afternoon or just kind of enjoy the breeze coming in through all these windows. As you can see, above her bed, this is a mirror. So her family built a mirror above her bed so that when she was recovering after her accident, or later on when she was having a lot of pain and was unable to get around, she could still see herself in the mirror and paint while she was lying down. So she would lie here on the bed, look at herself in the mirror, and then use an easel right next to her bed to continue to draw and paint self-portraits, even while she was bedridden. You can also see here on the bed, this is a cast of Frida Kahlo's face. This is actually the bed that she died in, and so in memorial of that, they have this sculptural image of her there. And as you can see over here, we have our view of that lovely courtyard and the door out there. So you can imagine during hot summer days, this would be a nice place to lay and get the breeze. You can see she has her crutches here for when she was walking around. And if you'll notice, these are images of famous communist leaders. It's hard to see because of the reflection, but this is Karl Marx. I think that's Mao, there's Stalin, I can't quite see who's over here. I believe that is Lenin in the middle. So again, a very political couple, Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera. Now we are going to move into Frida's nighttime bedroom. So here we can see, again, she has things hanging above her bed. In this particular place, it's a butterfly collection, so she could watch look at the butterflies and examine their wings and things while she was laying in bed. And then you have, obviously, her furniture, more of these papier-mâché figures that were used in different Mexican Catholic, folk, Mexican celebrations. Here are some examples of more pre-Columbian art and sculptures. There's a photograph of Frida Kahlo up there on the wall. That's a very famous, color photograph of her. As I mentioned earlier, she liked to paint watermelons and fruits, and there's an example of that. There's a painting of Diego himself up there that Frida drew of him. And here are just some more collector's items, some toys from when Frida was a child, as well as other figurines, a radio. And that brings us back out to our patio, our courtyard again. As you can see here now from the outside, this is where we just were. That's her daytime room. That's the bed with the mirror above it. This here is her studio. And that is the Blue House. That is Frida Kahlo's home. I hope you enjoyed this. Oh, this is a contemporary sculpture of Frida and Diego as skeletons. This is just more of the patio. This area used to be like a pump house, but now it's used for traveling exhibits of other artists. Or, for example, when I was there, they had an exhibit of Frida's clothing and jewelry, which was very neat to see. And then now, because it's a museum, there's a little cafe attached. So I hope you had a good time. Thank you for your patience as we navigate this whole online learning thing together. And yeah, talk to you next week. Bye-bye.